was going to become commissioner, and he wanted me to come help him in the bureau to support policies and stuff. And I was working for the company in Curacao, but I still have very good relationship with him. And I told him the options, and he said, okay, yeah. So I left that job, I quit, came here to support. Government lasted 6 months, actually 9 months total, but I worked here 6 months. And it was
2007?
2010.
2010.
So I started working, I started in practicals 2007.
Oh, this is the 10th.
I got a job. At that time when I was leaving, I
Yeah.
was in the management of the unit.
Yeah.
Then I came here to work here for the first. So I quit my job. I came to work here 6 months, and this is 2010, right? So I came to work March. I'm getting married 10-10-10. Mind you, we decided on that date before the day decided. So they even stole our date back at that day. And we did the last part of the negotiations, trying to recuperate some of the rights that were negotiated gone.
Was your party for or against the creation of openbaar leggen? Of were you? What's your?
Well, it's let's you know the way you ask the question shows actually the lack of comprehension that people even have about the process. Our party was in the beginning very what we stood for was a libre associat, liberally associated. That's a legal term, and that's a legal term within the context of the United Nations of the options that any country has, be it independent, be it integrated, or be it liberally associated. What does liberally associated mean? The liber means that out of a position of power, out of freedom, you choose to be associated with another power. Hence, it also shows that you have to negotiate also in the benefit of the smaller community. The whole decolonization process of the United Nations was always put to safeguard the small communities of being overpowered by the formal colonizing party.
For sure.
That was the intention.
Yeah.
So that was the position of the party since then. And libre associat can be many things. Libre associat, you can be what Curaçao de Aruba is. You know, they're associated but freely. Indirectly. What happened is in the whole process, when the Holland proposed to become a openbaar lichaam, a public entity, in legal terms, people should understand what a public entity means. And you can find it very easily. Just go to the Constitution, Dutch Constitution. It's chapter 7. The title of chapter 7 says provinces, waterschappen, they have in Holland, municipalities, and other public entities. Hence, in the Dutch legal system, a province is a public entity. A waterschap is a public entity. A municipality is a public entity. Hence, it shows you the legal construct can give you any way of creating a legal entity by using the public entity model. How do you define the rights, responsibilities, and obligations of a public entity is by the articles stipulated in it. So our party agreed with a public entity because
it could be anything.
It could be.
It could be a province, it could be a municipality, it could be whatever. So who could disagree with that?
Hong Kong could be a public entity.
Yeah,
Puerto Rico could be a public entity. Olam
so
could be a public entity.
The issue was the definition of this as it's the details.
What are the rights
and privileges?
What are the obligations?
Yeah.
What are the privileges that you have?
Yeah. Under that.
The content.
Yeah.
And then you see in the evaluation that Spies did that along the road, apparently Bonaire, the negotiation that was happening by the government before Democrat took over in 2009, because in 2006, 8, 9, and 10 there were agreements made.
Yeah.
2000, Democrat got into government. Mind you, the Democratic Party was not in government since 1999. In 2009, Democrat entered at the end. somewhere in, because that government at the end, beginning 2010, because the government of Democrat lasted 9 months. Beginning 2010, January, 9 months we were in government. In 2010, it was the first time after 10 years. In 2006, because the referendum in Bonaire was 2005, 2004 in Curacao, 2006 was the first agreement, 2008, 9, and then 10. What happened, because I was in the group of preparatory negotiation at that time, and we were in the last round of negotiation. Literally in the negotiations, you know what was happening? It's very simple. We went like, wait, but we want that this article, that these rights go to the island. They opened the agreement of 2008. So here you agreed that the government of Holland shall. So we were always limited
by what had
by
already been
agreements what was already
made
closed.
before.
And if you look at the rapport's piece, we wanted a libre associat, a liberally associated, freely associated. And one of the options there was, in what was designed in 1993 by the Prime Minister at that time, Lubbers, it's called Koninkrijkseiland, or Model Lubbers. And what it defined is a system where you have very broad internal autonomy, like a state in the US would have. And on certain areas, next of course to the constitution, everything, certain areas would be Dutch, federal. For example, education, finance, etc. But you have very autonomous, you would be, in Dutch we always say a land in country minus. So you would be Curaçao Aruba minus, but with Dutch financial support, structurally. Because that's the whole thing. The Kingdom of the Netherlands is the weirdest construction of the world, and actually an ingenious Dutch construction. Because the true state of the Netherlands is the kingdom. The kingdom is a true state. The kingdom at the moment has 4 countries. But, so it's kind of like a federation. It's 4 countries federated to create a kingdom. But the parliament of the biggest state in the federation is also the parliament of the federation, which the other 4 countries cannot elect. The government of which the parliament of this country elects is the government of the kingdom, with 1 representative added only if it's certain matters. Only if it's certain matters that is of kingdom, which is certain small matters. But the budget of the biggest partner is not the budget of the kingdom. So they have complete authority, they have complete democratic overpowerment, complete legislative overpowerment, but zero financial responsibility to cover the decisions they make. It's a very weird construct. I would honestly think you would have a second Boston Tea Party if in the States they would ever have, or you were to have secessions like you did have in the States back in the day. But to go back, we were not against the public entity.
Sure.
But the negotiations done afterwards to the content in it handed too much power over, let me put it this way, made Bonaire some certain fundamental points not have enough influence on certain key areas of the prosperity of their own
future. Do you see some of the issues of today a consequence of that?
Yes, some.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Example?
Yeah. For example, education. We have zero input formally in education, and the Dutch just copied the education model in Holland. Give you an example, right? Education model in Holland. In Holland, they have an association life and an education life. So what they do is, school is school, Anybody can open a school also. This is the minimum criteria you need. And if you want to do sports, arts, everything that's outside the school, find another organization that does it. But they have the social construct in Holland also that finance those stuff. In the States, for example, arts, sports are integral part of school. Maybe the American model would work much better in our construct because we have no public transport. So the kid is done at school. How does he get to sports?
Yeah, single mom, 2 jobs.
Single mom, 2 jobs, no public transport. Mom doesn't even have a
not
car.
safe to go cycling.
Not safe to go cycling.
Just goes home and nothing.
But do we have a say? Okay, yes. Work on the infrastructure so they can take a bike. Okay. But the thing is, the system is already like this. So before we have the whole infrastructure and everything ready, you already get lost up. But do we have any say in it? What would it cost to have part of the education that the first half of the day is cognitive, second half of the day is arts and sports, and they get it at school. So if it's a sport they can do at school, they do it at school, or a bus comes and picks them up at school to bring them to the sports. So it's to give you an example or another example. The Dutch decided, no, we're going to close all boticas. And we're going to put them all in this big, huge corporation who has the bigger budget than the local government itself has. A conglomerate, a Bonairean conglomerate, has all these areas. We see the consequences.
And reporting to the ministry.
Reporting to the ministry, but we see the consequences. We had in Bonaire, back in the day, one private botica, pharmacy. Then we had 2. You could get your medicine any time of day, any day a week. If you would come on Sunday, 11 o'clock, you come to the door, there's a number, you call the number, within half an hour they would come, open, give you medicine. Now they tell you we don't have the medicine. So, and how do we influence that? What can we do to influence it? Nothing. Because the public servant who serves it, who sits there, tells you,
you're not my boss.
Even if all of us vote them away, can we vote them away? So you elect the people here, and the biggest problem is a democratic problem. Just imagine this. What was it with the Boston Tea Party? No taxation without representation? Okay. So this is the Dutch Parliament. The Dutch Parliament actually runs 3 law regiments. One is kingdom laws, right? Those are the laws that count for all 4 countries because they are the parliament also of the kingdom. But they're also the parliament of Holland, and they create Dutch laws which apply only to the European part of Holland. And then they have...
Or technically Netherlands, because obviously there are other provinces.
Netherlands, sorry.
But they get upset when you...
The Netherlands.
Netherlands,
yeah. True.
Yeah.
And then you have the third one, which is the best laws. So just imagine this: you have 150 members of Parliament, lower house, 75 members of the higher house, of the House of Lords, of the Senate, 225 together. The Staten-Generaal, the Congress, Staten-Generaal. Those 225 members decide laws that only apply to these 3 islands. How many of them live in that law regime?
Yeah,
0. Okay, I study public administration. I like to read. I read Plato and then Aristotle, the theory of democracy. I always thought that Democratus meant the demos, people, Kratos, decide, rule. Question, what is the term when another populace rules another populace? Because they themselves don't live under their own laws. What is the term of that?
Yeah, the colonization is what has been
strict formally. I'm not saying it is, but if I open a dictionary and look at the definition will be that. Another populace economically and politically dominating another. So 225 people, none of them live in this legislative framework, but they have 100% authority over this framework.
So when something provocative happens, like a prime minister might say in the Netherlands that, look, hey, if you don't like it this much, why don't you just give me a call and you can always leave.
Okay, so
Why don't you just leave?
so a question.
Because there's somebody
No,
on the
but-
political spectrum who's actually
Yeah, but I think that's the dumbest argument. So you're telling me that the prime minister is saying if somebody that lives
Yeah.
in Dronten doesn't like his party, he'll tell him leave. I'm a born citizen of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Born. My language is different. So am I any less than them? No, you're my prime minister too, right? So if you want the authority, shouldn't you carry the responsibility? That's how democracy works, right? So the whole point is, imagine if one member of the Dutch Congress, Staten-Generaal, one of them would live here in Bonaire and their son would get sick and they go to the hospital and there's no medicine. What would happen?
Oh yeah.
It would get fixed, right? Because those employees do work for them, right? Isn't part of democracy, because the funny thing is, I'm a member of the Island Council, they made it a part-time job in Bonaire, because the theory behind it is you have to be with one foot within the community to be able to represent the community. The 225 members of the Staten-Generaal, how many feet do they have in the community? Not even a hair. The point is, they're making specific laws that only apply to us.
What would you do differently?
What do you mean?
What would you have preferred? What would you prefer?
My opinion, we're democratic party,
Sure.
right? My opinion, the people decide. I would say 2 ways you can do it. There are many ways, but like I said, a whole lot of gray. But imagine this.
A local council would make all the rules for the
One, or you could say no because certain authorities, no problem.
a couple of areas.
No problem. The thing is this. The Dutch parliament can decide, but they can only differ in policy on proposal or with approval of the local island council. Because imagine the Dutch say, no, we want to introduce the same social minimum as Holland. And your local island council says no, majority. What will happen next election to that council, you think?
Out.
You have influence. And a new council will come and say, we want it. Right? That's a way. Or another way is, which I prefer, is the way that the group of islands, look, I don't try to reinvent the wheel. Honestly, I read a lot, I do a lot of research. I research a lot of places. Why should we reinvent the wheel? You know, when you look at the Puerto Rico model, what do you try to look at countries, islands, places who are separated and how they survive? You do know, and you should know for sure, even Singapore, they told them when Malaysia kicked them out, because Singapore didn't want to leave, when Malaysia kicked them out, they told Singapore, you'll never survive. Look at where Singapore is now. You should say strong leadership. Look at Hong Kong. To give examples, but look at mind you, why am I using those examples? Singapore was around 450 square kilometers. By now it's 600, but because that's the
Dubai in the sand.
they grew the island. But that's the size of Curacao. Curacao is 444. We're 288. Hong Kong is about the size of Bonaire. The point is, at the end of the day, if you look at all these islands that are part of a bigger organization, Singapore not so much anymore, not so much, but in the region, if you're part of a bigger entity, how is the relations and how do they cooperate with each other? And you look, the ones that succeed the most are the ones who have certain amount of autonomy because they're so far off. Some will say, yeah, but look at the French colonies in the region. You could say that. How many locals still live there? All moved to mainland because they cannot thrive on their own island. And the islands became more of in the old empires of the world, you would say, the